Okay, so I tried to record this video already, but you guys won't believe what happened. The video got copyrighted strike because I played the fucking trailer for this in the background, which is insane to me, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I didn't want to leave nothing going on, but we're going to talk about a few things with this whole review. I think the first thing I want to address about this movie is that I am glad that it's doing so well. I'm super glad that it's doing so well because, you know, when is the right time to release a movie like this? And we kind of live in an era where I kind of feel like these kind of movies, you put them out there and you just hope for the best because, you know, it's an R-rated film, among other things, and they're, like, quite frankly, the tolerance that we have for bad movies is pretty high. That's why they're able to put out horror movies lately that are just almost comedic. I mean, they don't have any depth, but they're not even your typical slasher that we would have in the old days, like Jason or something like that, or Freddy, doing all these, like Hellraiser. Like, I remember when I first watched Hellraiser and things like that, it had some depth to it. It had some story to it. It had like an eeriness to it. Even Candyman. I remember things like this. Now, this doesn't quite fit in that ecosystem, but I guess my point is, as far as horrors go, because that's basically what this is, it's risky. It's risky to put a movie out like this, but it's even riskier when you're somebody that makes depth to a movie where there's usually not depth, right? When you're making depth to a movie that doesn't typically have it, you don't want the audience to be like, hey, well, what the fuck are we watching? And that's what's happened with this a little bit. Now, the reviews came in when I first recorded that other one. It was at 70%. Now, the reviews have been a little bit better. More people have watched it. And now we have the numbers that it's doing fantastic numbers. But when I first made that other one, I want to talk about something real quick. The people that went and watched this movie had fucking no clue. I'm convinced 30% of people that went and saw this fucking movie had no idea about the first one. And had no idea about the second one. And quite frankly, have no idea that there are 2 more movies coming after this. Because if you look at the complaints and you look at the people who judged this movie, and I was there. I was there when this fucking movie came out. And I watched 2 kinds of people leave the theater. Let's talk about those 2 types of people. If you are a guy who is a farmer and you're a Christian man and you've got you're in your 30s to 40s and you're like, oh, honey, what do you want to do tonight? Well, I want to go to the Texas Roadhouse and then maybe see a movie. Don't go see this fucking movie. It's not for you. You're gonna fucking hate it. I saw I say so many. If I said our capacity of our theater was probably about at 80%, at least 10% of people to maybe 15% walked out. And one of those was your typical flannel, hat, David, you know, like your regular good old boy. There are so many fucking straight up torture scenes in this, and violence, and you know, because they can't get past that. You have to understand, talking about conservatism, we're talking about highly Christianated people. They're used to the horror films that are very easy to absorb. They're used to the horror films that are just not as bloody, or as, you know, we know what kind of films I'm talking about. We're talking about your average run-of-the-mill fucking, you know, there's a doll. And they're like, yeah, a doll. I think it can move. And then they're like, oh, no, it can't move. Or they're used to the whole, oh, we're a family who moved out to a house, and the house makes noises, and our son talks to a ghost. Okay? They can handle about that level. It doesn't contradict their faith. It doesn't contradict their values. There are, you know, some hypocrisies in watching it, but overall, the movie just isn't made for people like that, because the content is very hard to absorb. You're talking about people who have spent their whole life building their lives in a way that only lend themselves to themselves. Okay? The second group of people that were walking out of this were young people. Now, I know it's rated R, but regardless, young people get into the theaters. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. A lot of young people. Don't know how I would describe them so you can get the mental image like that last one, but, you know, shaved head, got the curly hair, like the bruh, what's this movie? What the fuck? Those guys. Saw a lot of those walking out, and they had like the little giggle girls with them that are just like, what's going on? Okay. They're not going to like this movie. This movie has a lot of depth, okay? Much like the first one. Obviously, the second one, we can talk about that. But the first one, the same thing. It had layers. It had comedy. It had horror. It had struggle. It had emotional depth. It had characters that you fucking felt for. It had so much passion put into the development of these characters in such a short time span that when you see a girl and you know what's about to happen to her, and they're trying to give her the pills in the first one to make it okay what's about to happen, you just can't help but feel something deep, like something real for that character, knowing that, damn, that is, you know, and the characters that oppose that situation and the dynamics within that, it feels too real as to what might actually happen in a situation like that. And it's like, it's almost like the films talk about something that they're not supposed to talk about. That's what they feel like. They feel too real to the real human condition. And I know that's silly saying this, because if you're just a guy who watches movies, what I'm saying doesn't really make sense. You're not going to make that kind of connection with the movies. But I'm talking about if you have a good writer, if you have someone who actually cares about the content of the film and actually considers a lot of the angles and a lot of the stuff going on, you know, it's very easy to sit there and go, well, there's naked people and they rip heads off. Yeah, I guess it was okay. It's very easy to say that. But I'm saying the entire composition of the entire movie was so well thought out, to the color schemes, to the interactions between the dad and the kid. Everything was so well thought out that this movie did what the first one did. And I can't tell you how impressed I am, because that is very hard to do. And it's been, what, 18 years? Something? It's been several years. And to come back with the same level of passion, and to come back and really nail that on the first go, and to really set us up for an entire two other movies. But I will say this. Cillian Murphy will be in the second movie. I don't know what kind of role he'll take. I don't know what, if he'll be an infected, if he'll be whatever. I do know that he is returning in the second one. Okay, he served as a producer on this one. But I will say he will return in the second movie to this. Okay, there's going to be 3 movies. Now, I'm not sure about the third one. The third one has not been announced. I don't know if it's been written. I know that they haven't started production, but on the other one, they went straight from this movie into production of the other one. So we're going to have at least 2 movies no matter what happens with this movie. Like, say it bombed, we would have still gotten a second movie because that's the deal that they have set up with the studios between that it's already funded, it's already out there, it's already in production. And you wouldn't scrap something like this. It is not easy to just roll back. Whereas like an unknown director, if things kind of go south and the budget balloons, then it's very easy to roll that back up and say, hey, we thought about it and we're gonna shelf this. In this case, the IP has been disputed for a few years, and a lot of us big fans of the series who really thought, hey, this is one of the best zombie type movies, infection type movies that there is. Despite the second one being what it was, we're excited. We're excited, and we were worried about the future. But after having seen this movie, I just want everyone to know, should you go see this movie? Absolutely go see this movie. Go see 28 Years Later. Absolutely. If you have not seen it and you're watching this, I totally get it. But what does me, your average Jack Black impersonator, have to say on this? And I will say this: it is a beautiful movie with very rich characters, a lot of depth. It's honestly, if you have the money, see it as many times as you can. Tell your friends, buy your friends tickets. I don't give a fuck what you have to do. The thing is that a lot of us people who really love movies, who grew up with movies and had people in our lives that we connected through movies and movie history and things like that, and have been around in the industry and things like that, we have a more visceral connection. And I think that with this movie, I think everyone should see it. Now, it's not easy to see it. It's got a lot of parts in it that I thought were overdone, maybe played out too long, being left on a scene and just being made to watch feels, but that's what he's trying to communicate, right? Being left on a scene of a guy hanging upside down with a boy that is scared to shoot an arrow through him. You get that depth. You do get that depth. And it's not easy to watch. Those scenes are very hard to watch because they're played out very well. And I do think that the relationship between the mother and the son is something that, God, it feels like whoever wrote this had similar types of relationships that they knew that they could write and put into this, because it just feels too odd that it's so well connected. And I know that, the Danny Boyle guy, I know that he did do the first one. And I want to talk a minute about the second movie. Obviously, the second movie was a movie for people that don't like the first one. It was much easier to take somebody who say that you watched it and you really loved the first one. Well, your family members that you introduced to it, maybe they didn't love the first one. Maybe they were like, this is really weird. It's really artsy. It's really, and that they still capture that in this one. But in the second movie, it really was your typical, World War Z. It was your typical, okay, how do we get people that don't like these kind of movies to watch it. Well, we have to make them palatable. We have to go with the typical Dawn of the Dead. We have to go with the typical, how do we roll this out to people? How did they do it in the past? And, they played on a lot of tropes that really, this was not supposed to be a zombie movie, right? That's what he's always said. He didn't want it to be seen as a zombie movie. He wanted it to be seen more as an infection movie, something that had a little bit of emotional depth, something that could actually happen, whereas zombie movies are more fantasy and more all very stereotypically low budget and set up in a certain way. And I think he's trying to pull away from that, and it does really well. But that second movie, let's all agree, pretty bad. It was pretty bad. 28 Weeks Later was, it is what it is. Compared to these two, on its own, it's still very solid, very watchable. But I think that a lot of people that went and saw this movie absolutely did not watch those first two. So they had no idea what they were walking into. Now, 28 Years does encapsulate the story very well in a way to where you don't have to see the first two. But in the same way that you have such a deeper understanding, I feel it's necessary to appreciate it. I think it's necessary for you to watch the first two to get the full depth of what's going on and appreciate what's going on, even though the 28 Years Later movie actually does encapsulate everything pretty well and explain everything pretty well, because that's your first part of zombie movies, right? The first 30 to 40 minutes is dedicated to setting up the plot and getting everything rolling, which is why I'm glad that they're doing this in 3 parts, because we're going to get 2 whole movies that have nothing to set up. We don't need to set anything up. We could just have the full story. Now, another thing that people complained about with this movie, and these aren't really spoilers. Nothing I'm saying is too out there. If you haven't seen the movie yet, you can still see the movie, and nothing I'm saying is really destroying anything for you. Okay, and I want to kind of keep it like that, because I don't know who's all watching this. There could be anyone watching this. The ending. Good Lord, the ending. For the people that saw this movie and were completely caught off guard by the ending, I think a vast majority of those people that don't understand that there will be 2 more movies after this, I could totally put myself in their shoes. The people who were specifically pissed off at the ending but didn't know there will be 2 more installments. If I'm being honest and I'm putting myself in their shoes and I'm watching this movie and that's the fucking ending, I can agree. I can agree where they're coming from, and it turned out to be that boy in the very beginning. And one of the things is that I want to bring up, and I don't think anybody's talking about it, is that in the first movie, and this is why I think it's important to watch them all. In the first movie, you have your characters all at the end, right? He's hurt. They're putting out that big help sign, and they're showing that winding road. Well, that winding road shows up in this movie at the end, and it's blocked off. And I wonder if that's kind of where we're going to meet. If Cillian Murphy comes into play, if that is the same area, because I know personally, I know it is the same area in terms of it looks like they went to the same place and filmed literally the same area. But I don't know if it's the same area as, oh, this is in the same universe, and that is actually the same area. But it would be cool if it was. Now, anyway, the ending, was pretty crazy. But how I see it and how I think most people need to see it is that kid was raised, I assume, on his own. He raised himself. And yeah, he's an adult, but he was raised through all of this as a child. And I'm assuming other children lived and they all kind of grew up together. But it's one big Lord of the Flies, like weird, no social norms, like do whatever you want, anarchy, whatever. And if you saw, the Spike kid that was traveling with his mom, he had something of a Power Ranger on his nightstand that he left, right? And if you think about it from the context of a kid who likes those kind of things, he might fit in very well with that group at the end. But I could totally see why someone would be very off-put by the ending, because it is a very weird ending. Because, they take you on this emotional roller coaster, and they set a lot of stakes in the movie. They set a lot of stakes in the movie where they say, okay, this kid's in trouble. We want you to feel something. The mom, we want you to feel something. The dad, we don't really know his place, and then we're figuring out that he's not the perfect dad, that, even with everything going on, and, he's hurting. And they set a lot of emotional stakes. We have a lot of horror scenes, and everything's blended so perfectly. But I think overall, with those stakes being set, he does a very good job in both the first movie and this third movie of allowing you to laugh when it's appropriate and taking everything back down to a very human level. And at the end of that, it didn't feel the same. It didn't feel the same. Now, I'm not saying that it was a mistake, but I do feel like that was the weakest part of the entire movie, was the ending. And that is a huge letdown for a lot of people, especially because if that's their first introduction, was this movie to the 28 universe. Okay, if that's your first introduction, I would say, good God, that's a very weak part. Now, another weak part. Now, this is where I'm going to lose people. Okay, this is where I'm going to lose people, and I know. And listen, you don't know me. If you're just seeing this and you don't know me, I answer every single comment. I will have a full-blown discussion with you. Don't be afraid to comment. I'll be there. We'll talk about it. No big deal. But I'm going to lose some people here because I thought that the doctor character, despite being played by a renowned actor, had some flaws. Now, I think some of the flaws was this man has survived on his own the whole time. Okay? He has an entire system of being able to live out there. And while that is not unbelievable, right? I could believe it. He survived out there. He's a doctor. He's obviously intelligent. People think he's crazy. People don't know about him. But a lot of it's made up, right? He's very well attuned to death or whatever. Could have been a military doctor for all we know. But he's very attuned to it. He's very attentive. He's very intelligent. And he knows how to do everything. Except when this kid shows up and all of a sudden he is going to be taken out like immediately. I thought that was very hard to accept even with the circumstances that were different, okay? Because there were different circumstances of that boy showing up with the baby, okay? That boy shows up with the baby, and suddenly that is a different circumstance from any other time he has had to hide or any other time he has dealt with zombies, or infected, sorry. He's dealt with them for years at this point, supposedly. And the reality is that in this specific instance, he had to be saved by a young boy. And I think that that is very hard to swallow, because this man is out there literally building temples of bone. And he is able to do this for years without anyone else's help. And all of a sudden, he is not able to deal with even a single thing like he already showed he could do. I mean, the motherfucker has named them, okay? But it was down to either the kids save him or he dies. Something else that a lot of people had a problem with was the scene with the pregnancy. I want to talk about that for a second, because I honestly believe that on some level, some people don't understand that these aren't zombies in your traditional sense. These are infected. They are alive people. These people are living. They have a rage virus that makes them attack. Okay. In some of the deleted scenes, it kind of, and this is the DVD that came out so long ago. On some of the deleted scenes and some of the commentary, they do talk about how the virus would trick them into thinking differently, and it's more of a process of they don't realize what they're doing in a way. But there's still people. There's still people. Now, in the second one, they introduced the whole alpha thing because his mother was immune, and I believe that the father was technically what we see as alphas in this movie. Okay? But the issue that I think here is people, again, do not understand that these things are alive. They're very killable. They need to breathe. If you put them underwater, they will die. These things are living. They need to eat, and they do eat. They eat anything. They can only infect humans, but they are living. Okay? So going from that point, that means obviously that their reproductive organs work, and we know that the alphas are smart, right? And what the doctor's saying in the scene when he's, trying to explain that where the baby came from, he's saying, oh, okay, so if it's born like that, it's immune. Now, we still don't know, and this is going to be a huge problem for the next movie, is in the second one, we established that you could have immunity due to genetic anomaly, like the mother had the different colored eyes, so she is obviously immune, but she's not. She can still carry. So on some level, I do wonder, is the baby a carrier? Okay, just like the mother. Now, they might be actually immune and cannot pass it on and could create a cure. And a cure in this, to be quite frank, a cure in this 28 years later would, in fact, reverse the virus and make the person a person again for as much as it can. I would assume that there would be some lingering mental illness and other things like that. And obviously the ones that are rotted away, maybe they end up just dying anyway, right? But quite frankly, a lot of people had a problem with that scene with the pregnancy. Now, Dawn of the Dead, the remake, had that scene where we had that same problem. Okay. And that was also one of those scenes that was kind of polar to the way that people think and see movies like this. Okay. So I don't know how many people did not like the movie for that scene, but I feel like if you've seen the others, it made sense. But if you've only seen 28 Years Later, her having a baby seems absolutely ridiculous. Now, the part I will agree with what people say, and these are people who have written, they've wrote bad reviews. Let's just say that. I've read them. I went through about 200 reviews per site, just looking at what people were saying and really trying to absorb it. But the main issue with her being pregnant, I don't even think was the pregnancy or the fact that she was having a baby. It's the fact that the virus broke its own rules. When the mother walked up to the pregnant infected and she put her hands out and they locked hands, it was like, okay, well, you're breaking the rules of your own story. Like, you can't do that. But after the baby was saved or whatever, she went after her. Okay, so we saw that she reverted, but just that shred of humanity right there really feels like, one, these are the common infected. They shouldn't have these breaking of character like the alphas can have. And there is some question of level of intelligence on these alphas. Is, do they really think and feel? Because the only reason he is chasing them is because of the baby. That's his baby. But, I honestly believe that 28 Years Later, regardless of all of those little problems, was a fantastic movie with great music, just like the first one. It really captured the essence of the first one and made it better, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, we'll always have a special place in our heart for 28 Days, but 28 Years Later is not a bad movie. I do think it has just those few parts that are really tough to reconcile for a lot of people, especially people who have not seen the full universe or know that much about it. But I think even long-term fans are going to have some kind of opinions about these things because they could have easily avoided this stuff, What I will say is this movie would have 90, 95, 98% reviews if a few of these things were, I wouldn't say corrected, but maybe explained. Maybe the marketing told people like, hey, there's other movies. Go watch them before you see this one. I don't know. The marketing did not do a good job of explaining to people that there was previous movies, and the marketing did not do a fantastic job of telling people that there will be more movies. So it's just difficult. It's just difficult. Overall, I think the characters were perfect. The music was perfect. The story was really good. It really had, my wife is a Disney wife. Okay. She is a Disney girl. And even she said it was very easy to watch because I made her watch the two first ones, and she said they were tough to absorb. They were tough to absorb. She doesn't like zombie movies. She's not really a horror person. She was like, yeah, they're not bad, but still not her cup of tea. But she actually said she loved this one. She laughed. She cried twice. And I thought that was really telling for someone who doesn't even like these kinds of movies, to be emotionally impacted by it and to have a connection like that with it, and to even tell me on the car ride home and when we're walking out that she actually really loved it. I think that says all that it needs to say to me, that this movie is a fantastic movie. I really hope in the second one that they kind of just save all of the shortcomings that came from the first one and maybe prove people wrong. What I really am worried about is that the people who made the mistake of going the first time don't go see the second one. And, it's not like they got a refund for it. So those totals are counted in the total box office, but hopefully this movie does good enough. But I want to know what you guys think. I reply to every single comment, and I really want to hear from you guys. I want to hear what you thought of the movie. Now, yeah, I'm fat, and I'm a Jack Black impersonator, and obviously I sit here and I talk, and this is what it is. But, this is something, movies and things like that and games I love. Obviously, look at my weight. But I want to hear from you guys too. That's part of this channel. And, I would be more than happy to include some of y'all's comments in a follow-up video and go through them and answer them. And that'd be really cool. So, tell me what you guys thought of the movie, and I'll see you in the next one.